Worsley, who's Director of External Affairs for the charity Ambitious About Autism, and joins us from our London studio. Thank you very much for joining us. Leah, let me start with you, because you've got twins, obviously, twin boys, they're 12.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about what schooling's been like for them.
It's been a very difficult pathway for them. We were struggling to get them the input and support that they needed. They were within a mainstream primary school that was a small village school, and obviously there were issues surrounding the limited notional budgets and also the understanding and expertise around autism and the behaviours that autism can produce. So they fell further and further behind their peers. They weren't fulfilling their academic potential, and it was affecting their mental health hugely.
What did they need, do you think, then in school? What was missing that was causing this problem?
They needed the curriculum to be adapted to suit their needs. They do have what they call IEP, so individual learning plans, education plans. However, it's not enough. There's a lot of blanket policies in a mainstream setting, and such as behavioural policies, etc. And these don't take into account the daily struggles and challenges of children with autism.
Yeah.
Alison, let's ask you. I mean, I guess this is a familiar story, what Leah's talking about.
Sadly it is, and as you've referenced, the statistics show that autism exclusions have risen by 60% across England in the last 5 years, compared to just a 4% rise overall in terms of all numbers of exclusions. And behind those statistics are thousands of children, just as Leah's described there, who are being denied their right to an education and are suffering in terms of mental health and their ability to learn and progress academically.
What would you say is behind that 60% rise? Why is it happening?
Well, there are a number of factors. It is true that the number of children with an autism diagnosis has increased, but that alone in no way accounts for the dramatic rise that we've seen. There are also some perverse incentives within the system that mean that for some schools it may well be that it is financially beneficial and helps their league table results if those children do no longer remain in their school, and so there are some perverse incentives around that we feel need to change. And general kind of teaching support and awareness, as Leah's described, that understanding of what autism is, some of those behaviours that challenge, and how teachers and other support staff can help those children to thrive within a school environment.
Leah, what did you end up doing about it then?
I did some research in relation to on the National Autistic Society website and also at the framework, the new education framework, and it became apparent that the boys needed more input, and that input needed to be ring-fenced to their needs. So I decided to request an educational health and care plan assessment. I did this. Unfortunately, it was denied by the local authority at first. However, we did persevere with this, and we got private psychology reports, etc., which not all families are in a position to do so, and eventually they did agree to assess. At point of assessment, it became clear that they did need further input, but by this time it had broken down with the mainstream setting to such a point that there was no going back. The boys were school refusers.
So are they in a new school now, and
so
how are they?
Now they're in a specialist school, and they're absolutely thriving within a 2-year period. They're just coming up to 2 years now, and within that time frame they have gone up 4 academic levels.
Wow.
And are now at entry GCSE level, which we never thought that they would ever be able to sit the GCSEs a few years ago.
And what would you say to people who are watching this morning, whose children maybe are not autistic, but maybe are aware of other kids in the school, in their children's schools who say maybe a specialist education for some of these children is better than mainstream education, where they can get the support and backing that they need?
Specialist education is by far very beneficial, without a doubt, but as a society we need to come to terms with inclusion, and if we are going to say that we're inclusive, then we need to do so. We need to ensure that the schools as a whole are inclusive, and that policies and reasonable adjustments are made.
Okay.
Alison, can I just ask you one final question on this? There'll be people out there who have children in classes where there are autistic children, where perhaps they think they shouldn't be there because there's already too much pressure on teachers. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as Leah said, every child deserves a right to an education, and every parent wants the best for their child. We know that teachers have a lot to do. It's not easy for them to balance the needs of 30 children within a class, but inclusion doesn't have any kind of limits to it. We should be looking at ways to support teachers so that they can include children within the school, and it's very small steps sometimes that teachers can make to do that, such as introducing timetables so children know what's coming up next, providing structured activities around times of the day that are normally quite unstructured, which children with autism can find quite challenging. So there are simple ways to make inclusion within mainstream a reality for these children so they can go on and thrive.
Okay, Alison, thank you very much for your time there. That's Alison Wolsey. And Leah, thank you very much as well.
Thank you.
It's 7:45 on